The story of King Jaja of Opobo stands as a testament to how far the British colonial government went to achieve its aim of resource exploitation in Nigeria. However, reducing the legend of Juboga to its travails with the British government is unfair to the pages of history and reduces the rich, extraordinary life he had lived. Today, we tell the story of how a boy moved from being a slave to the king and the founder of perhaps the most prosperous kingdom in Nigeria's Niger Delta. Mbanaso Okwara Ozorumba was born around 1821 at Umuoduroha in present-day Imo State. When he was 12 years old, the Aro Confederacy raided his village, kidnapped him and sold him as a slave in the kingdom of Bonny, present-day Rivers State, to a certain Chief Allison. Mbanaso, however, was not your regular type of slave. He was so stubborn and insubordinate that Chief Allison gave him away for free to another chief, Chief Madu, who had been a slave himself before rising to become the head of Ana People House of Bonny. In those days, Bonny's political class was divided into houses, formed by powerful families, with each house relying on a network of suppliers to exert influence and conduct trade. Chief Madu died months after taking ownership of Mbanaso and was replaced by his son, Alali. Under Chief Alali, the young Mbanaso went to work, starting from the bottom rungs of the Bonny society as a boy. He was tasked with paddling the canoes and transporting palm oil from the hinterlands for sale to European merchants on the coast. Since slaves were not allowed to keep the names they bore as free men, he was renamed Juboga, a name his kinsmen shortened to Jojo. Jubo possessed an innate ability to negotiate, and his understanding of the Igbo language, which was the language of the palm oil farmers and the traders in the hinterland, helped him ascend fast through the ranks in the Purple House, from boy to war canoe captain, and eventually being allowed to run his mini operation within the Purple House, where he commanded a small fleet of war canoes to the hinterland, source palm oil and sell to the British traders. Unable to pronounce his name, the Europeans called him Jaja. Impressed by his fast understanding of the trade landscape, Chief Alali took Jubo to pre-season negotiation between the chiefs and the British. While Jubo was rising through the ranks of the Bonny society, there was a growing intensity in the historical rivalry between the house of Ana People and the Maninal People, the royal houses in Bonny land. King Perokule People founded both houses as one, but they soon split to become arch rivals after his death. This rivalry had reached a point where occasional clashes on the streets of Bonny characterized it. It did not help that Chief Alali and Chief Okujumbo, the leaders of both houses at this time, were sworn enemies. It was clear that a civil war was imminent, and since the current king was from the House Manila, he was not considered a neutral arbiter of the conflict. In a sad twist of fate, Chief Alali died in 1863, and it was revealed that Ana People's house was in severe debt to the British traders, who usually offered lines of credit to houses before the beginning of the trading season. According to some sources, this debt estimated at £15,000, around $2.5 million today. Since whoever took over the leadership of the house was liable for the debt, Chief Alali's son and brother shied away from succeeding him. Now 42 years old, Jaja stepped up and agreed to take on the debt and was crowned the chief of Ana People's house. Jaja wasted no time in solving the debt issue of his house, as confirmed by the writings of Andy Uboforibo, the chief of another Ijaw kingdom in the Niger Delta. He wrote, Jaja realized that Alali's two major failures were poor revenue collection from house members and poor negotiation of deals with the hinterland. It seems that he had just had better skills and charisma. He got the Igbo planter to give him better prices. He borrowed a bit more to fund the houses trade, but watched the houses traders like a hawk. Within 2 years, he repaid the British and put Ana People's house back in the black. Seeing that Jaja succeeded in returning Ana People's house with glorious days, smaller houses flocked to Jaja, seeking alliances and mergers. This strategic maneuvering amplified Jaja's political and economic clout. However, this newfound ascendancy only served to fan the flame of hostility within House Manila, who remained entrenched on the throne. The death of King Williams of Bonny in 1865 signaled an end to any act of performative goodwill from both houses. The question about the clash of the two houses shifted from an if to a when. That question was answered in 1868 when a massive fire broke out in Bonny during another unrest, affecting mainly Jaja's part of the town. House Ana People lost buildings, personnel, foodstuff, and most importantly, weapons. Assessing the situation and realizing how vulnerable his house had become without weapons, Jaja sued for peace, while Okojumbo, counting on the advantage he held, refused the armistice. The long-awaited civil war of Bonny between the Manina peoples and the Ana peoples finally broke out, with both houses backed by their supporters. Despite enjoying the support of 14 out of the 18 houses in Bonny, House Ana people was no match for the Manilas and his allies, thanks in no small part to the fire that destroyed the armory. Jaja and 14 houses loyal to him fled 26 miles east of Bonny, founding a new kingdom among the Andoni people, who were themselves an old rival of Bonny. The land they were given was at the confluence of Bonny River and Imo River, placing Jaja and his allies at a geographical advantage to cut off Bonny from trade with the Igbos in the hinterland. They named their new kingdom Opobo, after Opobo the Great, the founder of Ana People's house, and Jaja was declared Amanyan Nabo, king of Opobo. Jaja led Opobo into a golden era. Leveraging the geographical advantage of his kingdom, he cut off the other merchant kingdoms participating in the palm oil trade, effectively establishing a monopoly. Within 2 years of their sojourn at the confluence of Bonny and Imo rivers, Jaja established Opobo as the central hub for palm oil trade in the Niger Delta. However, Jaja's commercial acumen and fast-rising wealth gained him jealousy of both local people and the British businesses. His position as a middleman meant that the British traders who wanted to buy palm oil or trade with the tribes in the hinterland had to go through him. Jaja bought palm oil from his producers and then resold it to the British businessmen for export to Britain. The businessmen also had to pay him dash and komi in exchange for the right to trade in his areas. British businessmen impressed the colonial administration to intervene. Still, the consul needed a pretext to act since Jaja acted within the powers enshrined the treaty he had signed with the British consul, recognizing him as the king of Opobo. However, at the Berlin Conference in June 1885, the Foreign Office declared a protectorate over the region, including Opobo. The act also provided for freedom of navigation on the Niger River and its connected rivers. The act allowed British businessmen to be rid of Jaja. The businessmen formed a cartel and refused to buy palm oil from Jaja unless he sold it at the price they said. Jaja did not go down without a fight. To quote Chief Minan Pakabo, Jaja protested and pulled possibly the greatest boss move in colonial West African history. He boycotted the Brit traders and started shipping his palm oil to Britain directly. In the midst of the trade war, he accused the British of faithlessness for going back on the terms of their treaty with him. This was a king who had sent troops to fight the Ashanti alongside the British and received a sword of honor from Victoria. He was disgusted. The British colonial government administered his colony at the local level through consuls. The consul with jurisdiction over Niger Delta area was headed by Hewett, who then reported to the Prime Minister. Because of the treaty signed by Jaja in 1884, which recognized him as the king of the Opobo kingdom, Hewett defended Jaja's right to control the markets under his jurisdiction. By the extension, the monopoly British businessmen were impressing on him to remove Jaja. The businessmen who could not sway over Hewett found their luck when Hewett went home on sick leave in 1887, and the young Harry Johnson, 29 years old, deputized him as acting consul. The day Johnston arrived in Niger Delta, he sent letters to the Prime Minister complaining about Jaja. In his letters, he described Jaja as the most grasping, unscrupulous and overbearing of mushroom kings who ever attempted to throttle the growing commerce of white men within the rich interior. Johnston was on a mission to remove Jaja, and motivated by his businessmen friends, he was willing to achieve his aim using any pretext. The only problem was that time was ticking for him, because he had to act before the more cool-headed Hewett returned from his leave. Johnston summoned Jaja to a meeting on August 5, 1887 and ordered him to sign an amendment to his treaty, allowing free trade in his market and effectively ending his monopoly. When Jaja refused, Johnston cabled the Foreign Office, accusing Jaja of violating the terms of his treaty by obstructing free trade in an area that was not recognized by his treaty. After that first meeting, Jaja grew suspicious of Johnston's true intentions. To make matters worse, he hired men from the kingdom of Bonny and attempted to cross into the hinterland before he met a blockade set by Jaja's men. Jaja declined further invitations from Johnston. In a reply to one of such invitations, Jaja wrote, "I am quite sensible of your position and capability to do me harm. Therefore, I am afraid to come." Johnston, however, was unwavering in his plot. In his reply, he promised, "Whether you accept or reject my proposal tomorrow, no restraint whatever will be put on you. You will be free to go as soon as you have heard the message of the government." Being a man who kept his word himself, Jaja attended the meeting on the morning of Monday, September 19, 1887, and met quite the welcome. Not only was he confronted by Johnston and the British naval forces, Johnston also had the guns of the British gunboat HMS Goshawk pointed at him. Johnston read an ultimatum out loud, giving Jaja two options: go back home and be declared an outlaw with a bounty placed on your head for your capture, or surrender immediately and be taken to Accra in the Gold Coast and face trial. After examining the weight of the trap he had walked into, Jaja surrendered and was taken on board HMS Ghost Hawk in Accra. Rather than presumption of innocence until found guilty, which was customary mode of trial for the British, Jaja was charged and then asked to prove his innocence. Sir Walter Hunt Grubbled charged him with 3 counts of barring trade in the inland district beyond his jurisdiction, blocking the highway and the sea lane entrance into Opobo, and administering illegal oaths to the native people in his market, ostensibly to frighten them from trading directly with European agents. On December 1st, 1887, Sir Walter found Jaja guilty of the second and third charges and exiled him to the West Indian island of St. Vincent, with an annual stipend of £800 to be paid from Jaja's savings. Jaja was dethroned and exiled for operating a monopoly. Yet the government allowed the British company to do the same thing, backing it with legal authorization and a royal charter. Back in Britain, the British Parliament was agog with debates about the legality or fairness of Jaja's treatment. In exile, Jaja too was relentless in submitting appeals to the British government. With his health rapidly deteriorating under the stringent conditions of his exile, all he wanted was to die and be buried in his homeland. His appeal was granted in 1891 after he had served 4 years in exile. As Opobo prepared to welcome its king back home, tragedy struck as Jaja died on the Spanish island of Tenerife under unclear circumstances, with some sources claiming he drank from a cup of poisoned tea. His body was returned and buried in his courtyard. The kingdom of Opobo still exists in present-day Rivers State, Nigeria, with a direct descendant of Jaja on the throne as king. If Jaja had lived in today's world, he'd probably be amongst the Dangotes and Elumelus of Nigeria. He was smart, savvy and bold. It is too bad that the British ended his career in the way they did. It is a solid reminder of the dangers of colonialism and conquest. He was one of the best of Nigeria and Africa, yet he never reached his peak. Thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed this, share with someone, and until I see you again, bye bye.